Everybody, welcome once again to another video dedicated towards making all of us healthier and happier during the 2019 season. We're here at Browns Lake Golf Course. It's the first day of spring, and we're kind of lucky to be able to be standing here because it's pretty busy out here. So we're hoping not to run into any golfers. No, just kidding. It's about 41 degrees out right now. So anyway, we're going to be talking about spring training for patients. That's what we call it in the office. This is the time of the year when we see probably the most injuries, although this year was interesting because of the ice and the snow, the shoveling injuries, the falls. It was very, very rough. But normally the time of the year that we see the most injuries is early spring. So why? I think the answer is all of us just are not conditioned for springtime activities. That includes yard work, sports, exercise, all of those things that we're just not conditioned for. So I brought my little board just so I can refer to it once in a while. Some of the reasons why we're not conditioned: we've lost some coordination, balance, muscle strength, muscle mass, flexibility, muscle memory, and these are all the things that make us prone to injury, to soreness, to kind of get us out of the game a little bit. And so let's just talk about ways to increase our ability to reduce injuries as we progress into our springtime activities. So the first thing I tell patients, whatever you want to do in the springtime, start to prepare now. Start to sort of train your body now, so that 3 weeks from now you're loosened up, you're conditioned, your balance is better. And so start with basic warm-ups. For example, if here we are on a golf course, most of my golf patients sustain injuries this time of the year because they're just not loosened up. So the first thing I have them do is to simply get into a golfer's position, which means you get the butt out, get into a little squat position, work on posture, shoulders back, spine forward but straight, and hold that position so you start getting muscle memory. Your muscles start to feel what this feels like. From there, you want to start doing movements. And so again, if we use our golfer analogy, you start just to do the swing in a very nice, smooth, casual way. From there, I'll have patients grab a golf club, go into their garage or outside or in the living room, and start to do light swings with the golf club. And I think the key is to take your time to dedicate yourself to a lot of repetitions so that your body gets nice and warmed up. So, basic warm-up, stretches and cool downs is kind of the way to get things done with all of our activities. And we're not just talking about athletics, we're talking about raking, washing windows, walking, jogging, all of the things related to spring. So the most important aspect is the warm-up. And so I'll have patients march in place. If they're healthy enough, do jumping jacks, stairs, standing up and sitting down multiple times, which is a wonderful way to kind of get the heart rate up and get loosened up. And so those are some of the basic ways, even with it still being cold and snowy, to do some activities in the house to get warmed up. And then start to progress towards your specific activities. For example, gardening. So you do some of your warm-ups, you march in place, and some of the things that are associated with gardening are squats and bends. And so I'll have patients work on bending very, very slowly, butt out a little bit, bending forward, bending the knees, and working on bending. Stretching should take time because you can actually injure yourself if you stretch too quickly. So if you do a forward bend, which is what many gardeners do, you work on it slowly. Squats, butt out, and get down low because you're going to be doing a lot of this movement when you're gardening. I also have patients kneeling and standing up. I don't think I'm going to do it on this ground because it's very wet, but if you're able to, as a gardener, for our example, kneel, and then stand back up, and kneel again, and stand back up. That's one of the moves that's most difficult for our gardening patients, is that particular move. So do that as often as possible. Okay, so we have gardening, the golf we talked about, running. People start to try and run and jog this time of year, and the most important thing again is to warm up in whatever way you warm up. Jumping jacks, walking, and then progressing to brief jogs, maybe a half a mile on day one, two days later, just a little bit more than that. So your ramp up should be very, very slow, and that includes your speed as well. So you start slow, you start brief, and you ramp up from there in order to avoid injuries. I think the best time to stretch is after activities. So I'll mention this a couple of times. Warm up, participate in your activity, if it's window washing or raking or golfing or whatever, and then stretching once your body's warm. And we have a girl named Sam who's our exercise specialist in the office. You can always schedule brief consults with her or with me or anybody in the office. We talk about stretching all the time. And then a cool down, which might be a brief walk. Whoa! I'm gonna hang on to that for now because of the wind. And then sometimes patients need to ice, and they often ask me, well, how often should I ice? You know, and so if you're sore, if you've had a long day, ice is good. 20 minutes at a time, 2 to 3 times per day or per evening when your day is done. If you're using a gel pack, make sure you use layers. If you're using regular ice, chunks of ice, you can put it in a bag and you can put that on a body part without too much risk of skin injury. But focus on cool to cold, but not real cold. So icing is good. Make sure that you hydrate. Dehydration, especially with kids, is a very common problem, especially as we get into the late spring and early summer. And so significant hydration. Also vitamins, things like probiotics for stomach health, vitamin D, magnesium and calcium, and amino acids for muscle health are all good supplements. Supplements to reduce inflammation at the end of the day, to reduce pain and inflammation. Things like bromelain, and flavonoids, curcumin, turmeric, those types of natural anti-inflammatories, which have been proven to reduce inflammation in a way that's far, far safer than things like ibuprofen and some of the other, what we call NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, Aleve, ibuprofen, and some of the other ones. So, gardening, warm up, golf, warm up, running, warm up. Also, a lot of my coaching dads hurt themselves really early in the season when it comes to baseball and the other throwing sports. And so again, if you're throwing to your kids, start with soft tosses a few times a day and increase the throwing intensity and the throwing distance a little bit more each day. If you've gone from not throwing for 6 months to throwing 60-mile-an-hour pitches to your kid, likely you're going to hurt yourself. So work into that very, very slowly, okay? So again, always warm up first, then activity, then stretch, and then ice if necessary. So we talked about the vitamins. Make sure you wear insect repellent, both for mosquitoes and ticks, which become a problem as time goes on. Watch for heat-related illness, increased body temperature, increased heart rate, increased sweating, increased red face. Even if you can progress often towards heat exhaustion, which if you've ever seen it before, a patient will be sweating and then stop sweating. And that's a serious sign. So if you're working with a partner and that patient's been sweating and they're hot and all of a sudden now they're acting strange and they're not sweating and they're red faced, that becomes potentially a medical emergency. Dehydration is more common in kids, and so watch that to make sure that your kids are properly hydrated and that they're dressed appropriate for the weather. Make sure you have good shoes, preferably waterproof, good socks as well, okay? So I think that's about it. The main thing is to make sure that you're warming up, participating, stretching, cooling down, and icing with no matter what activity you're doing. And the time to do that really is now. If you have questions about any of these things, you can call me, my office. It's a good time to get massage, adjustments, getting your body physically ready to participate in the spring. The spring is a wonderful, not right now, but it's normally a wonderful time of the year. And we should all enjoy it, but we should all enjoy it safely. And the key really is enjoyment and injury prevention. And so feel free to call us anytime if you have questions that relate to springtime activities. Thank you. Have a great day.